on this topic. And myself being an entrepreneur for last 14 years, I am able to share my journey, my story. And if there are any questions, queries, please feel free. I'm sure we can make it little interactive so that post lunch it doesn't become boring. So, do we have a pointer or slider? Okay. So, I'm sure, is the voice audible here? Yes. Okay. So, I'm sure these are the women entrepreneurs we all know. And when I just Googled women entrepreneurs, so these were some faces which came and I said, we need to have them in the picture. And when we talk of women entrepreneurship, it's not something very different from a normal entrepreneurship, but the journey, the struggles, the challenges, and the opportunities actually differ. And that's where we need to specially talk on women entrepreneurship. Why do we speak? Because entrepreneurship. I mean, if I'm a practicing company secretary, I'm sure there are a lot of other men company secretaries also who have been practicing on their own, who have their enterprises. But then why we talk of women entrepreneurship as separate? So let's understand why it is different and how we really tackle those kind of challenges. So first, let's talk of some statistics. In India, around 20.37% of women are the MSME owners, and which accounts to 23% of the labor force in India. Whereas everyone knows here we are like 48% of the total population in India. And now, according to the McKinsey's Global Market Research Report, if we are able to increase the participation of women into the workforce means entrepreneurship I'm speaking, we will be able to add 700 billion US dollars to the global GDP. And the margin with which this has to increase is not very high. Now, present contribution of women to the GDP of India is only 18%, which is, I'm sure, very, very low. And that's where we are talking of more women coming into the entrepreneurship because now when we talk of women, I mean, it's not that women don't work, right? We do work. But what happens is 66% of the world's population, 66% of the work in the world is done by women. But then why they are only contributing to 18% in India? The main reason is only 10% of the world's income is women contributing to. And again, when we talk of the difficulties, so let's identify the opportunities in these difficulties. When we talk, there is less participation. What are the reasons? So we'll have to understand what are the reasons on that. Now, these are some top 10 women entrepreneurs in India. Falguni Nair, I'm sure Nykaa now it's a success story and everybody knows about it. And these are some Kiran Mazumdar Shaw who has created Biocon. So these are some very, very eminent stories. I'll not get into deeper into it. But then again, it's not about only the big cities have the women entrepreneurs. Today, women entrepreneurship is also in small towns and cities and rural areas. So these are some women who have been working very, very remotely in small areas and they've created big impact. So for example, if we say Pabi Rabri, she has created the handloom, she has created a complete digital platform of handloom products. And coming from a very small town in Kutch, Gujarat, she has created this. For her, it may be, for us, it may be a normal e-commerce website. But for her, coming out, having those struggles, fighting with the community around is something what has been a success story. Similar way, when we talk of Naval Bain, she has been, she has created a business out of milking the cows. For us, probably we may think that okay, उसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है, but then the struggle what she might have gone through to create that process, that system, that profitability to reach that profitability is something the journey we talk. Now, when we talk of women entrepreneurship, what is it, or when we talk of the entrepreneurship rather, what is it that success? I mean, and success being successful. Now, as I showed you in the previous slide, I don't kind of being successful is more of the relative term. I don't know how many successful you all are. You probably may not be knowing about my struggles and my journey. So it's very relative term to each other. And so what I say is wherever you are, start from there, and that's how the journey begins. That's how your. I mean, basically, when we talk of to the. So you have something to say? Yeah. So when we talk of wherever you are, start from wherever you are, and with whatever you have, whatever resources you have, and that's where the entrepreneurship journey begins. Now, how the entrepreneurship comes in is something fear and ambition. The combination of that, when the entrepreneur is, coming and becoming a entrepreneur, there's a lot of fear around. Will I be successful? Will this idea what I'm building on is going to be working? And how I'm going to build this complete, ecosystem or my enterprise, or how am I going to hire people? How am I going to generate resources? How am I going to really go to the market and sell my product? I have knowledge, I have expertise, but then how am I going to do? So fear is the first and foremost thing. At the same time, there is a great ambition, right? When we talk of yes, I am going to entrepreneur, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and that's where the complete change from that fear to the ambition takes. And the journey of entrepreneurship is completely in between. That what if I fail, and what if the world needs this? Now that's where the combination of it comes is, and then the entrepreneurship gets emerged. Now, when we talk of women entrepreneurs today, the world is really changing very fast, and all the women, I mean, who are probably in the education mode as of today, who are post marriage in sabbaticals, there is huge different journey a woman goes through. And if I really understand, I have been speaking to a lot of forums. We see in the schools, I mean, probably you open the newspaper after 10th and 12th results, you'll see all the toppers, majority are girls, isn't it? And in 12th also you'll see that, in the colleges also you'll see that. Now I'll give you the statistics. I had been talking to a company wherein, in the that age women are, the leaders I can say. But now when we talk of the women in leadership, I was talking to a company which is 10,000 crore company, and when we were talking about the gender diversity in the company, said we have 30% diversity, we have 30% women in our organization. I said, okay, and how many women are there in your leadership, in your top management? He said none, zero. And I'm talking of a company worth 10,000 crore. So where is this leadership going? Where are those girls going who are coming into the force, into the workforce? How are they getting dropped? So yes, there is a leaking bucket at the top. And when the women, usually at the lower level, at the middle level, you will find a lot of women. And that's where if the ecosystem is not created to support them, that's where they drop out. And that's where we have fewer women at the top level. So when we talk about the opportunities, today with the changing world, lot of different opportunities are getting created. Now women sitting at home have been doing n number of things, whether it comes to video production, art and dance, photography, career counseling. I've seen a lot of women getting into these kind of opportunities, freelancing, physician, fitness, financial services, jewelry. So these are some opportunities which are very, very easy for women to grab. And once they grab it, it's not going to be the easy journey. Once you think how you identify what's your, which kind of entrepreneurship to get into, what kind of business to start with. So let's also understand how you really identify which kind of business opportunity to be grabbed. Now, how do you really identify? And here I would like to say, today, I mean, I think when we are talking of the startup as an ecosystem, startups, why do they exist? Because they ask two questions. What problem we are solving? Every startup usually, comes in to solve a problem. Whether you say it's Ola, whether you say it's Uber, whether you say it's Bharat Pay, whether you say it's Paytm. So everywhere we see that the challenges what we see around us gives us the opportunity to create something different and to solve the problems and the pain and area. I'm sure a lot of us know in Mumbai getting cab and taxi was so difficult at one moment of time. After Ola and Uber came, even after that, they went on strikes and the taxi drivers and all. So that was a challenging time, right? And why the Ola Uber came and became the unicorns today? Why Ola has been a unicorn today? And these are the main reasons. So whenever any entrepreneurship journey is starting, the first and foremost thing is what problem we are solving is the question we need to ask. Again, so what you need to get out of the business, now a lot of social entrepreneurs are also getting it. It's not that you only become the entrepreneur with the mindset of earning huge profits. There are a lot of social enterprises also coming in today. I mean, we see Amul, right? Amul, I think, is the biggest cooperative movement in India. We see Lijjat, that's the biggest cooperative movement again led by women. So these are some examples that what really we want to achieve out of the business. So that also is the driving factor when the entrepreneurship starts. Now, these are some examples we have already spoken, whether it is, the Zomato, the Swiggy or Ola, Uber, Zoho. Zoho, I mean, I'm sure how many of you know really Zoho? It's an Indian company. Yeah, it's an Indian company, and today they are competing with the platforms like Google to provide the complete yes, it's a complete ERP software plus email assistance plus CRM plus you name it. Zoho books they give complete competition to Tally, and it's a complete online kind of and it's I think started somewhere in South. So these are some pain areas they might have seen, and that's how the startups have been created. Now, why entrepreneurship? We talk of entrepreneurship. Why do we really talk of the entrepreneurship? The first and foremost thing, the driving factor behind any business to start with. I mean, that's the kind of a definition of entrepreneurship. Also, we say that whatever skills and knowledge we have, how we convert that to a money-making entity. Now, when the business really is in line with your purpose, as I mentioned, that why do I exist and what problem I want to solve in this world. And that's where, when the business is aligned to the purpose, to what you are carrying on, the real journey of the entrepreneurship begins. So when we talk, the first and foremost is something kind of profit. The money has to come in from that entrepreneurship, that business. The second and foremost point is the personal satisfaction. As I mentioned that, am I going to contribute anything to this journey? Am I going to contribute to this problem? So what's my personal satisfaction? Again, independence. So here if I talk about my journey, so independence was something, which was the driving force for me. Because I, being a company secretary, I was working somewhere, I worked in a listed company, then I worked with Bombay Stock Exchange sometimes. And after my two daughters, I mean, my second daughter, I said, I can't, work completely 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 in a corporate and at the same time be a, kind of perfect mother for my kids. And that's where I decided to choose the independence as my, that why behind selecting the entrepreneurship. So every person will have definitely a different why. And I created the complete ecosystem around myself wherein my office was in the same building of my residence, where my school for my kids was hardly 5 minutes away. And I still remember my team members used to keep the keys of my car ready, saying that okay, now it's the time to take the kids from school. And I used to just rush to take the kids and then come back again and then continue what we are doing. And that's how you have to identify. I mean, I'm sure that's why we are talking of women entrepreneurship as different. Because men usually will not think of, once they go to office, there is a complete cutoff, from the family and the business or the work, what you're doing. Contribution to the nation's growth, and I think when we are talking of the startups, the unicorns, the first and foremost part, what they are doing is contributing to the national growth. Overall, any business you take, I mean, we spoke about 18% GDP contribution. So ultimately, what contribution to the nation we are doing is something the basic pillar of why for the entrepreneurship. And here, let me also, tell you that when we talk of the contribution, it's not only from the revenue generation, but it also comes with the employment generation, and that's the biggest contributor to the nation. I mean, I was seeing here almost 650 jobs have been created by those startups which are here incubated. So that's something is the core of why people want to get into the entrepreneurship. Again, wealth creator is something, wealth creation. So it's not only creating wealth for yourself. Now today, if we see the case of Bharat Singh, I think what he had was a stake was only 9%. The all entire stake is held by the other shareholders and investors. So you're not only generating wealth for yourself, but also the stakeholders who are involved. Now today we talk of a lot of startups getting listed on the exchanges. The BSE and NSE have the special platforms for startups. They can raise up to a crore of rupee at the by getting listed on the exchange. Definitely compliance requirements are little lesser for those startups. Then there are various relaxations given to those startups in terms of compliance also. Now, when we talk of the wealth creation, so they are not only creating wealth. The promoters, the founders are not only creating wealth for themselves, but also creating wealth for the stakeholders. Now, stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? Any idea? Any guess? Who are the stakeholders in a business?
Any involved business, like from the business perspective, development perspective, customers, everything.
Who are the stakeholders? Customers. Customer is a stakeholder. Who all are there as a stakeholder?
All intermediaries.
Employees are the stakeholders, absolutely. So your vendors, your customers, your suppliers, your employees, even government becomes a stakeholder because they're paying taxes, right? So they all are the stakeholders. And how are you becoming a wealth creator for all those stakeholders? So this is some, why behind starting the entrepreneurship. Now, when we talk about women entrepreneurship, some quick facts. Women constitute 48.9%, we all know. But then only 14% of total entrepreneurs are here. I think rather it was around 18% or so was the total entrepreneurship of women. Now, around 58% of the women start in the age group of around 20s to 30s. And only now here is the very, kind of a critical point which I usually see. 73% of the women entrepreneurs report less than 10 lakh revenue per year, which is a concern. I mean, we are talking of the entrepreneurship, we are talking of business growth, but almost 73% of the women who start business, they keep struggling because they are not able to see the right market, they are not able to get the right funding, and that's where I think institutions like this can, and all of you can come and support. So when we talk of these startups, around I think 35% of these startups which are getting formed are women-led startup, or they have 35% of the women directors on board. And only if I say this is again an area of concern wherein 71% of women employ 5 or below employees. And that's also a concern when there is no business or when there is no profits in the company. You definitely tend to do a lot of things like that. Now, I'm sure we all know a lot of startup policies are there by government, lot of initiatives have been taken and lot of support has been coming up. So Startup India is one initiative where is free co-working space and everything is given. Mudra Yojana, Dena Bank has its Udyogini Yojana, Women Entrepreneurship Portal. I think this is something which I have also experienced. It's a wonderful platform, but I don't see a lot of women coming and interacting here. There is a gem portal of government. I don't see a lot of women coming. I have registered myself on the WEP portal. I don't see a lot of women coming and interacting. And that's where I think more awareness of these kind of initiatives needs to be spread amongst the entrepreneurs. Because this is the platform where you are coming, you're showcasing what you have, you are able to connect to other entrepreneurs, you are able to solve their problems. Because when a business starts, I mean, for example, when I started my business, the first and foremost thing was I wanted an office space. Now I need someone to help me with the office space. The moment I start business, I need the computers, the technology. Then that's where I can, somebody can help me out. So whenever a business is getting created, it also generates sort of opportunities for others. So when people who are starting up their businesses, when women who are coming out and they're saying that I have this problem and because of this problem I'm not able to grow. then how you're really creating that network for those women to come and create a ecosystem or a sisterhood amongst themselves to create kind of a growth momentum amongst themselves. And that's where I think platforms like WEP really comes and helps. But again, awareness I think is a major challenge which I see on the platform. A lot of MSME exhibitions are there, national, international. So there are a lot of schemes which are there under the government, and I'll not very detail in detail. I'll not speak about it. But then awareness of these schemes is something which needs to happen amongst more and more women entrepreneurs. Now, what are the characteristics of the entrepreneur? We talk of women, we talk of that yes, there has to be entrepreneurship. Now, what are the real characteristics? So, the first and foremost thing is women need to recognize and take advantage of opportunities. As I said, there is lots and lots of opportunities around us. How we are really identifying those opportunities and taking the advantage of those opportunities. We have to be resourceful, creative, visionary. Now, when we talk of visionary, how we today see those tech companies coming and thinking of the problems which we can't even imagine. And I was going through one video wherein in I think 2010 or something, one of the ministers mentioned in the parliament was going to go and digital. Are you going to spend 7 rupees through a credit card? Nobody is going to do that. How are you going to arrange the devices? And today we see even bhajiwala, sabjiwala, your roadside vendors, everybody has GPay and Paytm installed in their mobile. So the technology, I mean, probably the visionary when we talk of the business, the entrepreneur has to be that visionary. The problems which are not currently seen by everyone or not thought of. I mean, they keep struggling with those problems but don't find the solution to that. So the person has to be the entrepreneur who really wants to be successful. I think that's a very, very important characteristics which I feel hardworking, risk taker, independent thinking, and persistent problem solver. I think these are some of the characteristics of women to be there. Now, when we talk of the skill set, what are the skill sets required? These are some skill sets. I'll not get into it because a lot of you are professors, and this is kind of lot of. I'll keep more of the interaction now open, but this is some skill sets which are very basically required. And I see, in fact, I'll tell you about one of the companies wherein there was a lady, a wonderful chartered accountant, excellent person to make the numbers. But when she was told to present it before the board, she said, "I can't do that." And that's why she passed the entire presentation to the male counterpart, and he went ahead and did it. But then what was missing? She was wonderful in what she was doing. What was the one thing missing was the communication skill and the confidence. So that's where we really need to upskill ourselves. And as I mentioned, why women are lesser on the top, as I mentioned, almost 30% at the overall organization level and 0% at the top. It's a definitely a red flag, and that's where a lot of strategy skills, leadership skills come into picture. I'll not get into this again. How do you manage? As I mentioned, the time management for women becomes much more difficult in terms of managing home, work, life, and that's where the real challenges start. I've seen women getting up at 5 o'clock, making complete home food for everyone, packing the tiffin, taking her own tiffin, going to office at 9 o'clock, coming back at 6, 7 o'clock, cooking again for the family, taking care of the kids' education, and then going to sleep. And again getting up the next day tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of you already might be doing it. So that's where we really need to create. I'll come to the next slide on that. And that's where how we really can create and change that to help. Now, first I'll take this and then I'll go back. The most foremost important challenge what women see is about mobility. Today I see a lot of businesses, or a lot of entrepreneurs. They keep traveling to different cities. I mean, I have met a person. You will call him and he will never be in the same city. Today you call, he is in Kolkata. Today you call, he is saying, okay, I am in Bangalore, I have a client meeting. And when we talk to women, they can't travel that much, right? Mobility is a big challenge for them. How we are going to cope it up? And that's where creating a complete system at home is very, very important. So when person is out, there has to be somebody to take care, and that support from the family is. And again, when we talk of today's generation, probably we end up staying more in the nuclear families. So that is, a big challenge, that how you're going to really create that system. And I'm sure a lot of you might have heard Indra Nooyi's conversation where she says that you have to create that, environment around you, and you have to co-opt and adopt the entire ecosystem around you to help you flourish, but everybody doesn't get that facility. Now, how do we create and how a successful women will be, that all depends on that. The next comes in the family responsibilities, lack of support from the family. Now, low self-confidence in starting business is something when we saw that almost 73% of the women are generating revenue below 10 lakhs. So that's where the low confidence comes in, and creating an ecosystem. Now, one more important aspect which I usually see restricting women from going out and doing something different is love and affection, love and protection. So a lot of men are overprotective of women. That okay, don't do that. It's okay if you don't do that. Please don't do this. I will do it for you. If there is something to go out and do it. अब घर का कर लो, हम बाहर का देख लेते हैं. So a lot of these kind of love and affection also are the basic challenges which comes in entrepreneurship. Now I go back. Now, if someone wants to be a successful entrepreneur, the right time is now. Why I say now? Because today India is standing on the, the starting of the era where entire world is looking at us. We have huge opportunities. We have, the way Indian policies are being drafted, the way I see, the entrepreneurship getting up. I mean, I think we moved hardly from 4,000, 5,000 startups to today 60, 70,000 startups in the span of last 5 or 6 years. That's a, a say that there is a right time for India to grow, and especially with the entire challenges in the world supply chain has been completely, shattered with whether you call it a war, whether you call it a China problem, lot of challenges around, and that's where we have the opportunity to really create the businesses which can be unicorns. I think we created maximum unicorns in the world today, and balancing the family, sharpening the saw. I think this is very important. That keep learning. I mean, it's a lifelong journey, so we need to keep learning every time, and that's where the real opportunities. How do you look for those opportunities comes in? So again, this is something which is very relative and which is kind of applies to everyone, whether male, female, everyone. Now, success is something what people see on the top, but the real hard work, the real struggle, usually nobody is able to see. So that's the kind of a success. And follow your dreams, and last but not the least, your attitude is like a price tag. So carry it with confidence, and that's more how valuable you are. So stay confident is something which I tell every entrepreneur, because once anything started with the confidence level, that ultimately results in the better outcome. So that's all about the presentation. But we can now start interaction, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. Now, also at this time, let me tell you a little brief about, though my profile was read. I have been from a very small town. I mean, the population may be around 10 to 15 lakhs, and coming from that, being studying into different cities altogether, then coming to Mumbai, creating the enterprise, starting with a lot of challenges. The family, the support which I got definitely from my family was the one of the reasons where I could do a lot of things, and then sitting on the boards of the company with market cap of around 17,000 crores. So that's the journey which I see myself. But and it's full of excitement, full of struggle. everything, and that's where I feel more and more women entrepreneurs should come and be the contributors to the growth of the nation. Thank you. So I'm open to answers and the questions and answers. That was, I kept more time for this. This was just the initial to break the ice kind of. I would be happy to have the interaction on it. And what has been your experience or your journey? And I would also be happy to have little kind of an introduction with everyone so that I understand if I can add some value to them. Yeah.
Can you just light on Minder my board activities?
Okay. It's not here, but I'll just speak on. So. Being a company secretary, I'm sure how many of you know what a company secretary does? Anyone here? Everyone knows what a company secretary does? No. Okay. So the way we have chartered accountants, I'm sure everybody knows who is the chartered accountant, who manages the finances. So similar way, there is a profession called company secretary, and the company secretaries are the people who are more of the governance and compliance oriented. So we help companies starting from their company formation till getting companies listed on the stock exchanges, the entire compliance management, which includes mergers, acquisitions, getting listed on the exchange. After listing, how the companies are going to be do the compliances for them. At the same time, startup advisory, we kind of provide when the businesses are very small. Also includes funding, helping them to flourish, helping them to nurture, and then creating a complete ecosystem for the businesses. That's how I have been helping. Now, in my journey of like almost 14 years, when I started MMD, it was around 10 to 12 years, and I realized two things. We as chartered accountants or company secretaries know lot of things about governance, compliance, that you need to have these kind of compliances done. You need to have, how the board processes do happen. We might have heard lot of companies that, okay, this company had a board meeting, this company had, declared the results, the bonus was issued, so on and so forth. The listed companies, especially when we keep reading in the news, even, the startup ecosystem, recently we heard about Bharat Pay. Also, there was one more startup where board resignations happened. I'm missing out the name. It was women-led startup. So that's where the board comes into picture, which is the top decision-making authority in any organization. And when they used to talk to companies, the board of directors, they were not aware about the basic compliances. Why do they need to hold board meetings? If I give you a statistics, roughly 7,000 companies are listed on the stock exchange. And I'm sure everybody knows what the stock exchange means, right? So almost 7,500 companies are listed on the stock exchanges. Around 30 lakh companies are registered with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, that is NCA. But almost 7 crore businesses are registered in India under MSME only. I'm not talking of unregistered businesses. Now, when we talk of to those companies which are, registered as private limited companies, I'm sure almost 90% of the businesses don't know how to formally hold a board meeting. What is the importance of a board meeting? I'll give a case study here. So one of our clients, it's a family business, father, son. Now father is in business for around 25 years. The son joins the business and he is appointed as a managing director. Chairman का बेटा है, so he is directly designated as a managing director. Now whenever decisions are happening in the company, and he is saying that, okay, let's take up this project. The team, the management, the senior team says, okay, let's consult with the chairman and then we'll do it. So the managing director comes to us and says that I am a managing director, I have a decision making power, and then I'm not able to do anything. Is my position only for a namesake? The challenge was in that organization was there is a board on paper. There is no formal board meeting happening, and employees always feel that जो chairman ने बोला है वो पत्थर की लकीर है, उससे आगे कुछ नहीं, उसके पहले कुछ नहीं. Now the person who's come and immediately appointed as a managing director, he feels powerless. मेरे पास power सिर्फ नाम का है, power नहीं है, and that's where the board processes come into picture. So, and again, these challenges at office were leading to a cold war at home. It's very quiet, normal. for businesses, and especially father-son kind of a relationship is little, difficult to handle, especially when they, work together in the business. And that's where we, started understanding. We spoke to them. We spoke to both the father and the son, and we actually created, and we told them, okay, now what you do is let's create a formal structure in your organization. People, and they had around 70, 80 people team. So let people see that there is a board at the top, and whatever decisions are coming is not from a chairman or a MD, but it is from the board. There is a collective decision making. So what is a board meeting? It's a collective decision making tool. So these are some kind of initiatives where we help companies to identify the gaps in their decision making process and help them to create those processes in the company. And that's where exactly Mentor My Board comes into picture. We train, groom directors on various board positions. Now, I've seen so many startups, they start from colleges, they start, after engineering, so many IIT or IIM students, they just have wonderful ideas. And even from here, I'm sure, a lot of students, as you said, they come and they jump into the business. Because the law, the Startup India says that you need to be a private limited company, they form a private limited company and they become directors. So by carrying the duties as directors, what are your roles, responsibilities as director? What are the processes of the board you need to follow? Definitely that comes in when the investors start coming in, especially in the startup ecosystem. And I think very recent governance failures in the startup ecosystem are the cases like Bharat Pay and all. So that's where the governance comes into picture, and we have been. So what we have done is the complete IT platform. It's a platform where it's kind of a LinkedIn platform. It's kind of a Amazon wherein we have a lot of governance products, leadership books, and under the same roof, also e-learning courses for the directors to learn on. So audit committee, nomination committee, how those committees function, how the board processes happen, how the directors have to speak in the boardroom, how women directors. I mean, women directors is a big focus. Now, recently Nirmala Sitharaman also mentioned that it's very difficult to find women who are ready for the board position. So there are huge gaps at that level, and that's where Mentor My Board is working. So
The same thing is applicable for Section 8 company.
yeah, Section 8 company also have boards. The only difference between a Section 8 company and a normal company is the object. Here the object is to promote the trade, industry, art and culture, and at the same time the profits cannot be taken out from the company. So whatever profits are getting generated, that has to be retained in the company for the betterment of the overall society. And the company cannot take dividends, bonus, so on and so forth. I think that's the only difference. But
Yes.
most of the company law compliances do hit them. There are certain exemptions which are given to Section 8 companies, but more or less the companies that definitely governs. They also have to follow the board processes and everything. Yeah. So I'm now open to interact and understand more. Yeah.
Shareholders are also there in Section 8 company.
Sorry.
Shareholders.
So there are two types of Section 8 companies. So company limited by guarantee. So in that case, there are members. There are no shareholders. And when the company is limited by shares, there are shareholders. So what happens is when the company is limited by guarantee, it says that if company goes into liquidation, we as members will be helping the company to liquidate. So if there is any money to be made, we confirm and we guarantee to support the company at that time. And the company limited by shares, from day one you hold the share in the company.
One of the points that I see why there is increase in number of women entrepreneurs in the microfinance through success groups.
Yes.
Because even the Mahila Bachat Ghat is growing tremendously in the rural market.
Correct.
This Assam product of the outcome of those groups.
Yes.
So that microfinance is one of the.
I think that's a very good, that's a very good, point. But again, when we talk of the businesses, those all are mid-size, small size. I mean, even micro businesses. So how we really want to help them to grow is something again a challenge. So definitely there are a lot of women, I mean, entrepreneurs working from home. You see, I'm sure in every home you will see women trying to help the family with whatever best they can earn. You know, यहाँ से प्रोडक्ट लेके वहाँ बेचा, वहाँ से लेके यहाँ बेचा, एनीथिंग, you know, छोटे से छोटा काम करके भी they are trying to generate a business, generate an income for their families, for livelihood. So there are a lot of micro businesses existing in India. I mean, when I spoke about 6 crore businesses which are only registered under MSME Udyam, and that statistic might be around a year old. Today we might have around 7.5 crore businesses which are only registered in Udyam. But the businesses which are not registered in Udyam, I know around 10 people who are not registered in Udyam because they say हमको जरूरत नहीं है. And I also remember, I mean, now the process has really been streamlined, but I remember one lady, she registered her business at that time. There was SSI, if anybody knows, small scale industries. SSI was there, and she registered her business in SSI for the grant of 15,000 rupees. There was a grant of 15,000 rupees for every women entrepreneur. She submitted the papers. The grant did not come because of the n number of reasons. This document is not there, and so on and so forth. And then she forgot. She said, "Okay, if I'm not getting it, that's perfectly fine." And she did not do anything. After around 4 years, the SSI department goes and raids her factory, saying that you have not done 5 non-compliances. I mean, you have done 5 non-compliances. Now you go and comply with all these things. Otherwise, there will be penalty. So the challenge in businesses today is not only from the execution part, but also lot of compliance burden is there on the businesses. So that's also one of the reasons why we have, lesser organized, structured businesses today. So, yeah.
Can you comment on, madam, this proprietorship, partnership, and LLP will have some?
So, yeah. See, basically, when we talk of the business structures, there are broadly around 6 types of business structures. The first is proprietorship. I am a proprietor. So, for example, DS Momaya company was my proprietorship for last 13 years.
OPC.
No, proprietorship.
OPC is different.
OPC is different. I'll come to that. So, it's a proprietorship where I am the only owner of my business. My PAN card number and my business PAN card number is same. There is no difference. I and my business are same. You cannot differentiate me with my business. So if something goes wrong in my business, my entire personal assets can be attached by the bankers, by the government for the dues, statutory dues, by even the big creditors if I have in the business. They can take my properties, liquidate them, and because there is a unlimited liability. The liability in my business for me is unlimited. Similar way you move to a next level comes in partnership. Now I am alone. I want to do a partnership with Divya. So Divya Square becomes a company and we start a partnership. Now here what happens is, what I've done is, I've only shared my unlimited liability with her. That means, if something goes wrong in our business, we both will be liable in the ratio of our partnership. Because my liability still remains unlimited. Now we move to the third point is OPC, one person company. I want to do a business, but I'm saying that I want to keep my liability limited only to the extent of my capital contribution. That means I am separate, my business is separate. My business has limited liability. That's where if we see private limited company, public limited company comes into picture, limited liability partnership comes into picture, wherein the liability is limited. And if the partnership or the proprietorship, the partners or the proprietors are no more, the businesses die. Because it was attached to my PAN number. If I am no longer there, my PAN number is not there, and that's where the businesses also die. But in the LLP, OPC, private limited, public limited, they get perpetual existence. Whether the owners and so when we talk of the private limited, there is a complete separation of ownership and management. Today, if I give you example of Reliance Industries, they have around 30 lakh odd shareholders, but they only have around 15 directors to manage the company. There is definitely a below hierarchy, the top management, the middle management, the team is there. But then when we talk of the management and the ownership, that is separate. which is only possible into the limited liability concept, because the management is the entity or the people who are taking care of the business, whereas the shareholders are the real owners of the business who take the fruits of the profitability in terms of dividends. So after the LLP limited liability partnership,
OPC cannot be private limited, right?
OPC is a private limited company,
Not LLC.
not LLP. OPC is different, LLP is different.
Yeah.
OPC is only one person. So sole proprietor is equal to OPC, partnership is equal to LLP.
When we talk about LLC, there has to be minimum 2 partners.
There has to be minimum. In OPC there is only one. Proprietor जो limited unlimited liability लेके जो proprietor बनता है, वही जब OPC form करेगा तो it will be limited liability OPC. So after that it comes as private limited company. Now why people go for a private limited, or why even Startup India has mentioned very clearly the businesses which come and generate or which get registered under Startup India mandatorily have to be either LLP or the private limited company. The basic reason is limited liability. The second basic reason is the perpetual succession, perpetual existence, which is separate from the owner. If this something is happening to the owner, that the shareholders, that can be changed, the shareholders, the legal heirs will come into picture. At the same time, the management can be changed. And that's where the private limited comes in. Now when we talk of public limited, then when the businesses are growing, they need to go to public. Private limited businesses cannot go and get listed on the stock exchanges. They have their limitations, their articles of association, the regulation, the document which governs the private limited, there are restrictions to transfer the shares. The shares are not freely transferable. Tomorrow I want to transfer the shares to someone else, I need to take approval of the board and the shareholders, right? But today if I have a share in Reliance, I can go and on the stock exchange and sell it to anybody. I don't know whom I'm even selling to. So those are kind of the different entities. Now when the businesses are growing, the funding, the basic reason from moving from one structure to another is the need of funds, the capital. Because in private limited, you will have very limited kind of the growth of funds. If you want to, go and get the money from public, you cannot take it in private limited. That's where people convert private limited to public limited. And after public limited, there is a listed status. So this is how the businesses grow. This is the basic difference. And if I tell you the basic difference is limitation on raising capital, unlimited liability, and perpetual existence. These are the three drawbacks of the proprietorship and partnership, wherein people move to other structures. Any other question? Any other point to be? But I would like to have little introduction about you all. Sir told me you all are from different colleges. So how has been your experience? That also will really be good to know. And what all you have been doing? I'm sure because for me connection or association with the colleges and the institution has been only in terms of my education. After that, I have not much interacted. So yeah. I would like to, kind of know your journey in one or two lines, probably.
All are faculty members of different engineering colleges.
Okay.
Madam, there are some schemes who are especially to empower women entrepreneurs. So if there is some, let's say, partnership firm or a LLP, and there are some male partners also coming, so can they avail this benefit?
See, lot of women-led startups, which we say, or women-led businesses, what they say is there should be minimum one woman on the in the company as the owner
With maximum share.
with maximum shareholding, and there can be men. So that's not a criteria that only women-led businesses will get funding, but then there are other ways also where men take the names of women and then apply for the grant, and that's also possible.
And that is allowed. The only thing is share holding of.
I mean, how you really know the intent? I mean, I have one point here: the ethical way of doing business. So that is, very important criteria. But then how many people really follow it, I'm not sure.
But that is mostly happening in the family owned business.
Yes, yes.
It's not in the real professionally run business.
No, sir. If you take example of NSP, the story is the same, but I'm a supplier of that company.
So, one question that I had is that now it is mandatory to have an independent woman director on the board. Uh, what is the, I mean, has there been any evidence to show that the presence of an independent woman director, first of all, why independent woman director? And is there evidence to show that having a woman director has brought in certain changes, or what is the logic behind that?
Yes, there are certain studies. Even National Stock Exchange has done one study on women directors. And see, the basic reason for having independent women director was when in 2013, the act changed and it mandated, or the SEBI regulation simultaneously changed and it mandated one women director on board. Before that, the representation of women was only 7% in the entire listed company space. After 2013, the regulation came in, and lot of Mrs. promoters started coming on board. The way I mentioned, the women names are given for the taking the benefits here to comply with the provisions of the law. Lot of women who were never coming to office, who were never attending the board meetings, who were never present in the board meetings, their names were there, and they were given leave of absence, and then kind of they are shown they are present, but whereas in the decision making process they were not involved at all. And that's where SEBI came out. I think there was some committee report in 2000, I think 16 or 17, after which the SEBI came out and said that at least one women independent director should come on board of every listed company. So initially the provision was made applicable to top 500 listed companies, then top 1000 listed companies, and from I think 1st April 2020, 2021, the provision, or 2020 rather, the provision was made applicable to every listed company. So every listed company which is today listed on the stock exchange even must have a women director who is independent of the promoter. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know what the independence means. Not related to the promoter in the blood relation, no monetary association with the company for past 3 years, no relation with KMP, key managerial personnel in the company. So there are certain criteria which are defined to identify what is the independence. And the ratio today, I think what last report of 2020 I saw, the ratio which started from 7% after 2013 Act came in, the ratio moved to around 13%. So today we stand close to around 17 to 19% of women's representation. How that has impacted in Indian boards, that there is no status.
So, your organization, that is Mentor My Board, also mentors women to
Yes.
take up these.
So we have curated special 3 months program for women to be ready for the board position, which includes overall support to women. It's not only about 1 or 2 days of interaction, but complete handholding. And I tell you, as I mentioned, the person, she was not ready to go and speak to the board. And that's where a lot of women, have those kind of barriers in mind. So helping them kind of 360-degree skill development is something what we have been working on.
So, if there are no studies about how it has impacted, is there at least some information about how seriously are these women, members, how seriously are they taken when they are part of the board?
And tell you, see my experience, I mean, I sit on board of around 4 companies as independent women director. And my experience is it's all about capability. Once you are in the board, you are a director like any other person. You are not a women director. I mean, I don't remember in any of interactions at our board, they ignore you because you're a woman, or they give you special preference because you're a woman. It doesn't happen that way. Once you are a part of a board, you are a part of a team, then you are like any other director. So probably when people, yes, that's fine that people are taking women directors only for activity. So that's only to enter. Once you enter, you are a normal director. Then there is no, kind of a distinction. But at the same time, I have spoken to a lot of senior people who have mentioned, ma'am, women directors don't speak, don't open their mouth in the board. The reason is lack of confidence, lack of capability, or lack of awareness of the subject matter. I mean, the company, the research, the homework. I think that's where something we need to build on more on the capability part. Yeah. Okay.